back to our channel.
Yes, welcome back. Okay, so we are all College Advising Corps eAdvisors. The mission of College Advising Corps is to increase the number of low-income first-generation and underrepresented high school students that enter and complete higher education. We also work with CollegePoint. Also, please subscribe to our channel, and if you have any topics you want us to cover in the future, please let us know in the comments, and click the little bell so you get notified when we go live. Okay, we're going to do some brief intros first before we get into essay writing. So my name is Rachel. I'm a second-year eAdvisor. I went to UC Chapel Hill in North Carolina. I use she, her pronouns, and I majored in psychology.
Hi, my name is Juliana Avery. I use she, her pronouns. I majored in political science and business, and I am a second-year eAdvisor in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Hi, I'm Abby. I also use she, her pronouns, and I'm a third-year advisor, also in Chapel Hill. I graduated from Appalachian State University in 2017, majored in social work, minored in sociology.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about 6 main things. So we're going to talk about what's the purpose of a college essay, how to brainstorm if you are stuck trying to get started. We're briefly going to go over Coalition Common App and UC tips and prompts. We're going to go over some common do's and don'ts of the college essay. We are then at the end going to talk about QuestBridge. So please, if you have QuestBridge specific questions, save it for the end because we will have a Q&A. And then we're going to be going over some additional resources.
Okay, so to start off, we wanted to just go over basically like what is a college essay? What is the purpose? Why is it important? Why do you want to write it? So we'll just go through that very briefly. So basically, as you already know, the rest of your application, like the entirety of your application talks about, a lot of it talks about your numbers. So like your test scores, your grades, your GPA, like all these sort of things. So it basically shows who you are as a student. But the essay is a space for you to tell admissions officers who you are outside of that, so who you are as a person. It's a space for you to talk about something that you're passionate about, tell admissions officers like a story about your life, just like who you are as a human being, what your personality is and what you enjoy. So it does sound kind of cheesy, but genuinely admissions officers are looking to understand you as a person. So they don't want to know just about your scores and your grades. That is important, obviously, but they also want to know like who are you outside of all of that. So the essay is a space for you to go through that and talk about that because there really isn't another space like it on the application. So it's unique in that way. So a lot of times students are really worried, or I get this question a lot, or this worry a lot, that students are worried about writing an essay that's unique and stands out because they know that the essay is important. And I really feel like as long as you're focusing on something that you're passionate about or a story in your life that is important to you, then it will be unique on its own. As long as you're being specific, it will be unique. So don't worry too much about that, about like standing out or writing a unique essay. And we really want to emphasize that although the essay is important, like there's no lie, it's important, it's only one part of your application. So admissions officers read your application holistically, which means that they take every single piece of information into account. Like they really look at everything to make a decision. So yes, essays are like definitely a big piece of this puzzle, but there are a lot of other pieces to your application. So try not to stress about the essay too much or put too much emphasis on the essay. Like don't let it overwhelm you. Like, yes, it's important, but also there are other parts of your application that they're looking at too. It's all important.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about brainstorming, which is the first step to your essay writing process. For a lot of students, picking a prompt and then picking a topic is really stressful. You feel like all this pressure. And I think that the best thing to do is to look at all of the prompts and then narrow down which ones you're considering. So maybe narrow it down, like with the UCs, there are 8 options, narrow it down to like 5. And then think about possible topics you could talk about with those prompts. Like write this all out. This is going to take a little bit of organization on your part, and think of different ideas. Like if the prompt is, what is a project you are the most passionate about? Think about all of the different things you're involved in and write what you would talk about in that essay. But if you're having issues thinking about what you would say, like a lot of times I would pull up the prompt and just be like, I have nothing to say here. I don't know where to go. We have a couple different methods that you can use in order to get yourself going. So one of our favorite resources is the College Essay Guy, and he has this process called the values test. And we're going to include the link below a little bit later. But basically it's this list of like over 50 values, and you go through it and you click and you like select the top 10 that you feel are the most important to you. And then you go through a process where you're going to narrow it down to your top 5, then your top 3, and then pick the one that's the most important. And the purpose of this is for you to think about, what do you put the most value on in your life? Is it that you're really hardworking and that you're really kind and that you care about people? Okay, if those are the values, what are moments in your life that you think reflect that, and how could you show that to the admissions officers? So that's a really great way to get started if you're feeling a little, what's the writer's block?
What's the word for it?
There it is. Also, he has a list of questions you can ask yourself when you're trying to come up with what you want to say. So some of those could be like, what's the toughest decision you made this year? What's the toughest decision you've ever made? What are you grateful for? What's the most important lesson you've learned in your life? So just like asking yourself those questions, and we'll include a link to that, can really get you thinking out of the box. Because a lot of times you're like, I have nothing to say, but you do have stuff to say. You've lived a really great life, or a really cool life, and you've had experiences that are yours, and they want to hear about them. Also, talk to your advisor. We want to hear about them. We're here to help you brainstorm if you're feeling stuck. So utilize us. Another hint that I think is really helpful is when I would start working on my computer, I'd get distracted super easily. So if you're going to do it on your computer, don't let yourself open any other tabs. Don't open a game. Don't do any of that. Or just like write it all out on a pencil and paper kind of process. If you feel stuck and you've been at it for like 20 minutes, go take a walk, pet your dog, bake some cookies, do something that doesn't involve a screen so that you can take a break, but then come back. It's really important that you come back to the process and you continue working on it. And then make sure that you're giving yourself multiple different days to brainstorm and write. Like, you don't need to do all of it at one moment. This isn't a one-day process. So you can think about it, come up with an idea, come back, and then be like, love that idea, let's do it. Or, what was I thinking? That was a moment. Yeah. So that's our tips for brainstorming.
Okay, before we get into the prompts, we have a question from Amber. Is it a bad place to talk about what you would like to study in college? No, I don't think so, especially if you have a specific major that you're very passionate about, or if you really love history, or if you want to be an engineer and you are in an engineering club, or you work with an archivist at your local library or something like that. You have an experience in your life that's like related to what you want to major in. I think that would be a great place to showcase that interest.
And you can talk about how your interest in that developed. So if it was like you go into the museum as a kid, that could be a really interesting way to start your essay. And then you could talk about what you've done while you've been in high school, or like what experiences have really made you passionate about it.
Agreed. Great question.
Yeah. So now we're going to go into more specifically the Common App, the Coalition App, and then we'll dive into some of like the Common App questions and tips for those. So to start off, Coalition application. This one is a little bit less common. So if you haven't heard of the Coalition application, that is okay. You might be doing all of your applications on Common App, which is fine. But the Coalition app also exists. It's an option. So we just wanted to briefly go over their essay stuff. So for the Coalition application, they're unique. There is no word limit for their essays, which is not common, but they recommend 500 to 550 words. So they basically say, we know there's no perfect amount for an essay, but we recommend 500 to 550 words. So they don't have, a limit, which is neat. And they have 4 prompts. They're kind of unique. And then they also have like essay of your choice. So you can write about whatever you want. So that's the 5th one. And also you can reuse your Common App essay here. So if like one college requires that you use the Coalition, but all of your other schools are doing Common App, so you have to write your Common App essay anyway, you can reuse it for the Coalition application. You don't have to rewrite an entirely new essay. Even if it doesn't fit into one of the Coalition prompts, there's always the choose your own. So that's helpful because you can use any essay there. So that's nice. And then Common App, this one is a bit more common. As soon as I said that, I was like, that's just saying what it is.
The Common App has way more schools as well.
It has way more schools. Yeah, a lot more students use it. So the Common App essay, when we refer to the Common App essay, we're talking about the big essay that will be sent to all of your Common App schools. So each school has their own supplemental essays too. Those are smaller and are sent to the individual schools. But the Common App essay, you'll write one essay. It's sent to all of your Common App schools, so it's pretty important. It's a 650 word limit, and there are 7 prompt options. You have to choose just one. And we're going to go into the prompts now so that you have a few tips for each one.
We have a question. Do we want to answer it now or come back to it
Yes.
later? Okay, so it's what if what makes you passionate is controversial, which is a good.
Yeah.
I think maybe going back to the values test and seeing how what you're passionate about is related to your values and seeing if you could stress that more than maybe what the potentially controversial topic is. Also talking with your advisor, because there's like a scale of appropriate things to talk about. But I think like if you're really interested in truth or like people having the ability to talk or like speak their voice, like you can boil down your passion to something that's a little bit more generic.
Yeah. And also, whatever your college essay should be focused definitely on you and on like your personal growth or on something that you really care a lot about. It shouldn't really be like an academic essay where you're talking about like a specific topic. So as long as it's more introspective and just showcases your personality and character traits, most topics should be okay, as long as, like I said, you're focused inward and on letting the admissions officers really get to know you as a person.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, now we're going to dive into basically our like one tip for each of the Common App prompts because it is the most common application for our students. So the first essay topic is about the background or identity that is important to you. So I think this is a great place to showcase something that is not reflected elsewhere in your application that you feel is important for you to let admissions officers know. Of course, if your background is similar, if it's like a religion or heritage or culture, and you're also part of a club at your school, the essay would be a place for you to dive even deeper and talk about that with admissions officers and really talking about how your background or whatever you're writing about has shaped you into the person you are today. The second prompt is about overcoming obstacles and learning from failure. So in this one, I think the most common mistake that students make in this essay is that they talk too much about the obstacle or too much about the failure. So if it's like a 5-paragraph essay, they spend 4 paragraphs talking about the obstacle or the failure that they encountered and only 1 paragraph talking about how they've grown or what did they learn from this experience or focusing more introspectively. And I think you should spend as much time, if not more, on that second half on how you've grown as a person as you do talking about the failure. So that's my one tip for that essay. The third one is, when have you questioned or challenged a belief or ideal? So for this essay, you really either have a story or you don't. And it's also completely okay if you don't have this story, but don't try to force something just to write an essay about this topic. The fourth prompt is about a problem that you would like to solve. So the biggest part about this essay is the problem has to be connected to you in some type of way. You have to be passionate about it or care about it, or maybe it's impacted you directly. Yes, just make sure there is that personal connection if you choose to write the fourth topic. So for the fifth topic, the accomplishment that sparked a period of growth, you definitely want to be talking about a transition in your life that shows a period of growth, obviously. And the most important part about this essay is you want to showcase your maturity. So just make sure that you really focus on that in this essay. The sixth topic, describe a topic, idea, or concept that you find so engaging it makes you lose track of all time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? Okay, this one's very specific. So in this essay, it's very similar to number 4 in that this should be about something that you're very passionate about. This should be something that you genuinely love and have maybe even done research on in your spare time. And so I kind of feel like this is one of those, you either have it or you don't, and you shouldn't try to force it if you don't have it. Because there's a lot of different, there's a lot of options here. So don't try to fit yourself into a prompt that you feel you're having trouble writing. And then number 7, the topic of your own choice, which is just like a free write if you have another topic that doesn't fit into the first 6. It was actually the most popular essay topic last year. 24% of students last year that submitted the Common App to colleges chose this topic. So definitely, I feel like the most common problem that students have with this prompt is that they have a different idea in their head of what they want their reader to get out of this essay. So just make sure whenever you write this essay, you write down like, what do I want my reader to take away from this essay, either about me or what's my main idea, what's my main topic, and have someone that you know and trust read it. A friend, a family member, a teacher, somebody in your community that you can turn to, your advisor. That's right. Have somebody read it and ask them, what did you take away from this essay? Because you want to make sure that whatever is important to you and whatever you want them to take away, that you are conveying that message. We have a question. Oh no, did someone say Donald Trump? No one did. That's okay though. All right, so now we're going to move into talking about the UCs, specifically that's the University of California application.
So we're going to do a super brief overview just because a lot of our students are interested in them. So the UCs require their own application, so it is a fairly intense process. There are 8 different prompts you can choose from, and you pick 4. The biggest thing to keep in mind, I think, is that there's not one large, you're not going to send your Common App essay to any of the UCs. All 4 of the essays are going to be the same amount of links, so you need to put the same amount of time into each of them because they're going to be weighted evenly. Also, if you're an out-of-state student, you're probably not going to get a good financial aid package from any of the UCs because they save that for their in-state students. So think about if the amount of work you're going to have to put into this application is worth the possible outcome.
Mhm.
If you love UCLA and that's just like you have to apply, do it, but just recognize that you're taking on a lot of work in order to apply to this one school.
Definitely.
Yeah. So now we're going to go into some do's and don'ts. So the first one we're going to talk about, very important, and you've probably heard this in your English class and throughout your life when you're writing essays, is show, don't tell. So we've come up with a couple we've come up with one show example and tell. So we'll show you like what it is to show and what it is to tell.
I am so busy with my involvement in clubs, and I volunteer at the local animal shelter 4 days a week.
That was an example of telling. This is an example of showing. I walk into the shelter and am greeted by the friendly barks of my favorite dog, Juniper. I love going to the animal shelter every Friday and getting some quality time with the dogs, as well as giving back to my community.
So as you can see, we like the show better, which is the second one. And that is because showing allows you to engage with your reader more. It makes it more interesting for the reader, honestly, to be reading something that is descriptive, that immerses you in a story, that pulls you in, rather than just being told what you should know, basically. So it's a really good idea to utilize this throughout your essay, and specifically at the start of your essay. It's a really good way to draw readers in by like starting with a story, a narrative, and drawing the reader into that. It's a really good way to start out the essay.
Okay, and we did get a question. Do you have any tips for short answers with word counts? So I definitely feel like for a short answer, especially if there's a very short word count and you don't have a lot of words to elaborate in, I would recommend answering the question out loud to somebody else or to the mirror or your stuffed animals or whatever. Because when you're answering it out loud, you're going to basically hit the main points. And then that will help you figure out what is most important for me to let admissions officers know in this short answer. And also this video will be posted later. Okay, so also our next tip for do's and don'ts is, we have another question. Just to have a format to base the essay on, should we do it as a narrative essay?
Yeah.
So for the college essay, I think that you can choose, it's really up to you. There's no perfect format that every admissions officer wants to read all the essays in. But if you are going to go with more of a narrative essay, I think that those narrative essays that tell stories are very captivating and engaging. And so it's more fun for an admissions officer to read, and, put yourself in an admissions officer's shoes, think about how many hundreds of essays they're reading every day. So they want to read something that is engaging and engages them. So I have a somewhat unique job for a high school student. Is this something that I could write my essay on? Yes.
Yeah.
Jordan, I think that is a great idea, especially if you have, like talk about a moment or an experience or something that has stuck out to you in that job. That's how you should start your essay with that, and then go into maybe how you have learned and grown, or, how has this impacted you? How has it changed the way you think? Any of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Some colleges have similar or the same short questions as QuestBridge in What's Your Favorite Book? Should we put the same answer for both or answer differently? You can definitely reuse answers. Work smarter, not harder.
Yes, and QuestBridge even, like they have on their help page or whatever, they say reuse stuff. So they explicitly say that.
Mm-hmm. Our next do's and don't is try to meet the word count, or at least be within 100 words of the word count. So if the word count is 650, you should at least try to have written 550 words, because if you're writing less than that, you're not really fully answering the prompt to the best of your ability. We answered all the questions.
Okay. So do focus on yourself in the essay and not other people. It's okay to talk about someone in your life and how they've influenced you, but make sure you're bringing it back to you, because this is your application.
Yes, exactly.
And show how you've changed and grown as a person.
Yes.
Also, do give yourself enough time to write your essay and edit it a few times. So I know a lot of us in high school were procrastinators, and that is just sometimes the life of a high schooler. I know I was when I was in high school, but and a lot of times it's like a challenge, like you want to write a good essay like the night before, but don't do that with your college essay because this is so important. And you really want to have enough time to write it, let it sit, look back on it again, give it to multiple people to read. So you can't do all of that in, one night. So really give yourself the time to write it and edit it. And like I just said, have a few people read your essay. So it's really good to have multiple pairs of eyes on your essay. So if that could be like a teacher or a friend, it's sometimes good to give it to like peers and they can read it because they know you best, or a family member, or even your advisor. So just make sure you have a couple of people reading over your essay and giving you feedback. It's really helpful. And a lot of things will stick out to other people that don't stick out to you as the writer.
Exactly. And be sure not to get too many people to read your essay, because then you have too many conflicting feedback and ideas that are being given to you. So you should try to stick to just 2 to 3 people that are editing your essays.
And then also, if you have too many people, you can lose your voice.
Yes.
Which is bad because you want it to sound authentically you.
Absolutely.
Which sort of leads into the next one, which is write the essay yourself. It's okay to get help, of course, and to get feedback on your essays, like we were just saying, but we want to make sure that this is your own original work and your own voice. And just write your essay yourself.
All right. Another question. Do you have any tips for how to handle writing the main essay plus supplements for multiple colleges?
I think making a schedule for yourself, because I remember it's easy to get bogged down by how much you have to do. But if you just say, I'm going to write the supplement from UPenn this week, next week I'm going to do that, and break it down into multiple different tasks instead of just all the college essays I have to work on, makes it more manageable, and then makes it so that you're actually able to accomplish bits. Because sometimes if you just have this huge task, you never want to start on it because it's always looming.
Exactly. And this is definitely a good time to think about time management. So you don't really think about time management when it comes to writing your college essays, but it's very important so that you're not too overwhelmed or stressed or writing this all the night before it's due.
Prioritizing any of your early applications, because those are due the earliest. That could help with breaking it down so it's not just all one big chunk. You have some that are due earlier.
Exactly. If you're applying early action to 2 schools and regular decision to 4 schools, you definitely want to get your early action supplements done first. Another question, should the main essay and the supplements have similar themes or concepts if you can work it in? That way they seem connected. I think that it's totally fine if they're different, because you do want to let admissions officers know as much about you as possible. But that being said, if there is that common core of maybe you want to major in psychology and you love helping people, if you talk about 2 different things, but that's a common theme, I think that would be fine. But it's not
essential.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about some common problems and questions. And to get started, we're going to look at one of the most popular supplements, which is the why this school?
Juliana's favorite prompt. I'm kidding.
So there are some do's or don'ts we're going to go over. Just a starter one is that be really careful that you're sending in the right school, the right supplement. Because last year I had a student who didn't change the name from Yale to Stanford and then submitted the supplement saying Yale is the perfect school for me.
To Stanford.
I hate to hear that.
Shocker, she's not at Stanford.
You hate to hear it.
It shows that you're not being careful, and it can come off as lazy. And for schools, they're just not going to work with it.
No.
So a couple don'ts. Don't just write about the school size, location, their reputation. They know all of this. If you want to mention this at one point, I love Boston and can see myself enjoying the cold, that's okay.
Yeah.
But don't make your whole essay reiterating the blurb you find about them on Wikipedia, because that's just not saying anything about you.
Exactly.
Don't simply use emotional language to make your point. Don't just say I want to go here so badly. I would just be so happy and it would fulfill that isn't going to show the admissions officers anything other than you just really want it. And that's not what they're using when they're deciding whether or not to let someone in.
Exactly.
Don't screw up the mascot, the stadium, the team colors, or the names of any important people or places, like the name of the school. Those are great for adding detail. So you want to make sure you do research and that you're actually correct when you reference the mascot. Do think of this as a why them essay. So a good thing I like to do is write down everything you're looking for in a school and then everything they have to offer, and talk about why you're perfect for each other, because you want them to know they have to earn you. You have a lot of options. You have a lot of schools, but you're applying to this place because you love them for a particular reason.
Exactly.
Do mention specific classes, professors, clubs, and activities that you would be excited about being on campus. It's okay if they don't always have that, but they'll know that you took time and did research and like looked at the catalog of classes. You looked at the activities on their website. Those all show that you care and you're invested. Do campus tours, or like in person if you can. If not, do a virtual tour so you can actually get a feel of what it's like on that campus. A really important thing to keep in mind is if you could take out the school's name and submit it to any other college, it's not specific enough. You want it to be catered to the school you're applying to so that they know you've put in the work and you really are invested. And last but not least, contact the admissions office. You can email them, you can call them. They ask them about the different clubs they have on campus. Reach out to them. Their job is to respond to you. Their job is to talk to you. They're there for you. It shows that you're interested, and it also helps you get a bigger and better idea about what the school has to offer. I think that's
wonderful.
Why them?
Yes, and if you have any more questions about like why this specific school, please reach out to your advisor or your English teacher, or you can ask questions in the comments. Okay, so we are now going to talk about QuestBridge. Yay, QuestBridge, due date coming up. Okay, so QuestBridge has a lot of writing supplements. There is the biographical essay, that's 800 words. The two topical essays one topical essay, that's 500 words. And then there are 2 short answer questions that are 200 words. And then there are 7 35-word answer questions. Okay, so for the biographical essay, it's 800 words. And I think that what makes a very good biographical essay for QuestBridge is starting it with like a defining moment, or that hook that you might have heard from your English teacher, a defining moment, a specific story, something that is captivating, and then moving from there into talking about your life. I think that where sometimes students maybe have a good base but need to get some more edits on their biographical essays for QuestBridge is when they try to tell your whole life story. And I know that it kind of seems like that's what the question is asking. Like it is saying what have you overcome in your life? But you really don't need to tell your whole life story for an admissions officer to really get to know you as an individual. And also QuestBridge does recommend that you use this essay as your Common App essay. Just, of course, if you go over that 650 word limit, you would want to just cut some parts out to use it for your Common App essay. Of course, if you don't want to use it for your Common App essay, you can write another essay if you choose to do that. Now for the topical essay. So for these essays, it doesn't matter which prompt you choose, but you definitely want to write something that you're passionate about, and your essay should be genuine. Just be honest. And use the brainstorming techniques that we talked about earlier if you're really having trouble coming up with which question you should answer. So the 2 short answer questions for QuestBridge, there's the achievement essay and then the historical figure, fictional character essay, who would you want to meet? So for the fictional character or historical figure that you'd want to meet, it genuinely doesn't really matter who you pick. There is no right or wrong or perfect answer for who you would want to meet, as long as your answer is honest and genuine and you have a good reason for why you would want to meet this person. You should really connect it back to yourself. And then for the 35-word short answer questions, don't think too hard about these. You should not spend too long answering these. They really do just want your short, brief answers. But that being said, you should still proofread, make sure that they're grammatically correct. If you are writing in full sentences, use periods. If you're writing in a list, you don't need to use a period. For the question that is, list your favorite books and movies, you really can just make a list. That is completely fine. Or you can write 1 or 2 and maybe give a short reason for why you like it. There is no right answer. Okay, we've got a couple questions. Can our Common App be the response for the biographical essay? Yes. Do you have tips on how to demonstrate interest in college if you cannot tour? Maybe what could you email the admissions counselor about? Well, that's first of all, emailing the admissions counselor, that's perfect. You can ask them if they have any ambassadors at their school, like current students that they would be willing to get in contact with you, that you could ask them more specific questions about campus life. And I think that would be a great way to figure out, to maybe make your essay more specific. And also, as Juliana was mentioning earlier, doing a virtual campus tour.
If you have questions about a major that you're interested in, if you could double major, if you can triple, if you have anything related to academics, you can also email them about that because they're quite knowledgeable.
Oh wait, I also missed this one. Sorry, Amber. When colleges ask, what can you contribute to our college? Do they mean, should we mention how can we be involved? How do we plan to take advantage of their courses, or something else? Oh, that's the question. Yeah, how will you contribute to our campus?
I think this is a good time to reflect on what you've done in high school and maybe what you are proud of or what you regret. Like if you feel like you didn't get involved as many things as you would have liked to, you could talk about how you're excited to have the opportunity at college to be involved in so many more things.
Yeah.
Or you can talk about how you want to continue those things that you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you're in the marching band and you really want to be in the marching band at whatever school you're applying to, that is a great way to talk about how you would contribute to the campus community. But yeah, good question. Those ones are hard.
I've also seen a student, if you're looking up a club and you see that that school doesn't have that club, a really good response would be like, I've been involved in this club and I really like it. I see that Stanford doesn't have it and I would love to start it, because that shows like you've looked it up, it doesn't exist, and you would take the initiative to like do it. So even something like that, it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Do colleges read both QuestBridge essays and Common App essays? Okay, so whenever you apply to QuestBridge, and then if you become a finalist, then your application, your QuestBridge application is forwarded on to the colleges that you ranked specifically. Those colleges will not see your Common App during the match process unless they require you specifically to also submit the Common App, which some schools do and some schools don't.
Yeah, it's complicated.
We love it. But if you do not match, like if you are a finalist but you do not match to a school, most of the schools are going to require that you do go ahead and submit the Common App in addition, but they will still see your QuestBridge application. Great question. Okay. Any more QuestBridge questions?
Yeah, we just want to open the floor.
Yes,
for
opening the floor.
Any and all QuestBridge questions, or QuestBridge essay questions specifically.
Yeah. I didn't miss any, right? No, I didn't. Okay.
I don't think so.
What portion of students who apply to QuestBridge are finalists? Great question. They released the numbers. I want to say around, this is just me pulling this from my memory, but they did release the numbers. I want to say at least around 15,000 students applied and around 5,000 to 6,000 became finalists. Does that sound right?
It sounds right, but I really can't confirm.
Oh, wait, okay.
We got it. Okay,
where is it? There were
really close.
16,248 applications and 6,507 became finalists. So take that and do with it what you will.
A great question. And also, if you have more questions about QuestBridge, we did a live stream on that last month, so feel free to watch that video or ask questions now. We know it's a confusing process and the deadline is quickly approaching.
And if you did, if you go back and watch the video and you have a question, then you can leave a comment and we'll respond to it later.
I just got a new one.
How should we pace ourselves in order to complete the QuestBridge essays on time? Great question. Time management. Okay, so I think it would probably be best to set aside like a certain amount of time, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour if you know that you can focus for an hour, and say, I am just going to answer the 7 questions. I'm just going to try to get those finished in this time, or I'm going to spend an hour working on my topical essay. And if not finishing your topical essay, just saying, I'm going to pick the prompt and maybe brainstorm and maybe create a draft, and then maybe start writing.
And do not wait to hear if you are a finalist to start working on the supplements. As soon as you submit it, assume you're a finalist and work on the supplements, because you just have, I believe it's like 2 weeks in between finding out.
15 days or something.
15 days.
Yeah.
That is not enough time, especially if you're ranking 12 schools. You do not have, don't do it, please.
Yes. And so what Juliana was just talking about is, so after you've submitted the QuestBridge application, so the biographical essay, topical essays, all those questions, and your rankings list of schools, if you become a finalist, which you find out on October 15th or 16th, you have until November 1st. So between middle of October to November 1st, like we said, 15 days to do all the supplements for all the schools that you ranked. And a lot of these schools do have additional supplemental questions for you. I know that Columbia has a questionnaire. I know, UPenn also has additional questions. Princeton has additional questions and also an additional financial aid form, because you also have to do the FAFSA and the CSS profile before November 1st as well. So just really make sure that you are really giving yourself enough time. And like Juliana said, just start making a plan for all those supplements before you find out that you're a finalist.
I would also recommend looking at your syllabus for your classes and seeing if you're going to have any exams or tests that are going to be the week before your application's due, just because that would be such an unfortunate series of events. And really like planning ahead and knowing you have some very busy weeks ahead of you, but it's okay. Because even if you don't become a finalist and you have those supplements, you can use those to apply for scholarships. You can save them and use them on other applications. Like, they're not just worthless.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. How can we edit the Common App even after linking it to QuestBridge? Oh, and submitting our applications. A wonderful question. Okay, so I think one common misconception about the Common App is that your Common App has to be totally and completely done for every single one of your colleges before you click submit, but that's not the case. Of course, the Common App part, so your demographics, your family information, your education, the Common App essay, the writing, the big writing piece, all of that should be done, but then you're going to be submitting it to each college individually. So like, if you have UNC's ready to go, you can just click submit and then theirs is done. But if you still are working on the Duke supplement, then that one's not ready yet. It's not going to submit at the same time. Linking I'm unsure about what the ramifications are of linking QuestBridge and the Common App together. We will do more research into that and find out for you. But I do know that, hold on one moment. Yes, thank you.
Hi, thank you.
So sorry to bother you. But definitely you want to make sure that your Common App is completely finished for whenever you are submitting your applications. All right, another question. Can you use an animal character in the who would you like to meet question? An animal character? Oh, I don't see why not. As long as you have a good reason for why you would want to meet this fictional character, and give a reason about how it relates to you, your passions, your interests, your personality, whatever it is. I've never read an essay that uses an animal character, but I don't think it would be a bad thing. I don't know. Thoughts?
I don't think so. I'm sorry. I'm laughing at the
It's okay.
the interruption, not the animal character. Yeah, I think especially if you feel connected to that animal, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's about you and what you think is going to show them who you are.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they leave it open like that so that you can choose anything. So, yeah.
Oh,
Out of curiosity, which animal?
Yeah, which animal character? Can you tell us? I would like to know, Ava.
Is it Bambi?
Also, I think that Taylor, she retracted her message, but the question was where can I find the information on QuestBridge supplements? If you go to the QuestBridge website, click on the college, and then click on the application requirements, it will give a detailed outline of what every single school needs, and so including writing supplements. Okay, not really QuestBridge related, but in general, how many reach, match, or safety schools should we have in our college list?
Great question.
All right, hang on, we're about to be interrupted again.
When will you please turn off the light?
Yes,
We will. Thank you so much.
you.
Being in the office after hours. Got to make sure we close up, turn off the lights. Okay, so we recommend that you apply to a minimum of 5 schools, 2 safety, 2 match, and 1 reach. Of course, that's going to probably vary from student to student. Some schools, it might be more beneficial to apply to more. Of course, if you are doing QuestBridge, we recognize that you might have more schools that you are applying to, just with the nature of the QuestBridge application on top of your Common App application. But yes, a balanced college list, 2 safety, 2 match, 1 reach. Would y'all agree, concur? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's minimum.
Minimum, yeah.
And if you're not applying to QuestBridge, I typically don't recommend applying to more than 12 schools. That's a large list. That's a lot of work. And
Yes.
if you're having issues cutting down your list, then doing more research and deciding what you're looking for.
Yes.
I know it takes time. I know it feels weird to be I have to decide right now what I want for the next 4 years, but you do.
Well, yes, definitely. And okay, another question. Would it be better to write your who would you like to meet essay by tying it to your past or your goals for your future?
Either.
Yeah, I think either. I'm intrigued by either concept. I think that also one of the best essays that I read last year from a student who became a finalist dropped us in the moment. And it was creating a story. This person was in front of the person that they wanted to meet. And it was so many thoughts were swirling through my mind. Whatever, this person means so much to me and I care about all of these things. And then the end of the prompt was the student asking a question. So you can get as creative with it as you like. And so it can be you recalling a memory of the past or of you trying to talk about your future as well. All right. Any other questions related to college essays or QuestBridge? We will probably hang out for about another minute or two. And also you can ask any questions now about college essays in general. It does not have to be about QuestBridge. It can be about the Common App, UCs, Coalition, or any other specific prompts.
And while we're waiting for questions, I'll just go through a few resources that we wanted to mention. If you need more help on your essays, obviously we've mentioned this a few times, but you have your advisors, but we also wanted to share some like common resources. So the first one that we really love and who we referenced a lot when we were creating, thinking about what we wanted to say for this I almost said Facebook Live. We used to do Facebook Lives. YouTube Live is College Essay Guy. He is really great. He has a lot of different articles. What are some of our favorite articles from him? Like why this college is really helpful. His why this college article.
We mentioned his values test. He's got other ones for brainstorming that you can use. I think he's like over 10. He's got a lot of options if you're stuck and you feel like writer's block is
And it's all free. He has both a website and a YouTube channel. And obviously you can watch his YouTube videos for free.
There is stuff on his site that you can pay for. I wouldn't do that.
Not necessary.
Because you don't need to.
Yeah.
Because he has so many resources that are free and you should save your money.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Reach out to your advisor. That's why you have us.
Yes.
A question. Can an essay ever be too story-like, such as writing a book instead of writing about yourself? I think as long as you're connecting yourself to the story and you're talking about whatever it is in that story about you, your personality, your values, a moment that you've grown, I don't really think an essay can be too narrative or too story-like. What do you think?
As long as you're focusing in on yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe having like one paragraph at the end that sort of is like, why did I just write this story? Why is this important?
Yeah.
Sort of your big, why does this matter?
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you're doing if you're interested in creative writing and you feel like your short story is some of your strongest work, you could include that. And then, like Rachel was saying, have the last paragraph to talk about or like have something that brings you into it. Because I think there's so much value to your writing and your work, but you want to make sure that you're included in the essay.
Yeah.
And how personal should you make your essay? Is there a thing as being too personal?
I think that depends on the kind of details you're talking.
Yes.
If you're referring to like personal, it's hard. It's really tough.
It's hard. And so that's definitely going to depend on situation to situation. Reach out to your either your advisor or like a trusted English teacher or a family member or a peer to talk about like, would this be appropriate in an essay?
And if you're wondering to yourself, like, is this too like, is this really appropriate? That might be a cue that it might not be. If you're wondering to yourself if it might be.
My go-to is always like, I'm unsure about this. Is this appropriate? I think if you're asking yourself that question, maybe it would be a good time to workshop a different topic. But of course, reach out to your advisor. You might have a good topic. It might just need it to be like worded differently or in a different light or maybe changing the focus.
Yeah.
Should the essay be formal? More on the colloquial side or a mixture of both? It is hard to incorporate voice if you are trying to make it formal. That's a great question. I think that your essay should definitely showcase your voice. That being said, it should be, a professional essay, but it doesn't, you don't have to make it extremely formal. Like you can still talk about your experiences and your personality and like your whatever accomplishment, growth, failure has occurred without trying to make it sound not like yourself. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And
can you use second person? I've never read an essay in second person, but I don't see why not.
Yeah. It would probably be unique to admissions officers. Maybe like, this is something new.
Yeah. If you are going to use second person, just make sure that it really works with your essay. So make sure that you have someone else read it as well and make sure that you, like what you are intending to get across in your essay is coming across to whoever reads it.
So maybe after they read it, ask them, what did you get? And don't tell them what you want them to be getting from the essay because they're going to let you know whether or not the message you're trying to convey is being properly received.
Yeah. And I think about the formality thing. Oftentimes students you've probably only written, like high school essays, like English essays, where it's like a formal structure where you're like intro paragraph, conclusion paragraph, 5 paragraphs. And that makes sense that that's all you've ever written, but college essays aren't that. So don't feel like you need to fit into that formal structure. I don't know if that's what you were asking with formality, but it can be like less of a formal structure than that.
What do you do if the essay you've written is something that you feel puts yourself on the page, but your family who you ask for advice feels like it is not you or they do not agree with it?
That's a tough situation.
I would maybe write down a list of what you think the essay shows about you. So like you're like, I really think this essay shows that I'm hardworking or dedicated, or I think it shows that I value my family or heritage or culture. Like write that down, and then have your family write down what they got. Don't compare lists in the beginning. Like just be like, what did you understand about me? And then compare those lists, because there might be a disconnect like in your writing and like what you're trying to portray. But that being said, I think this would also be a good opportunity to maybe get a trusted teacher or peer, read your essay and also do that list activity and see if their list is more close to what your list is. That's a great question though.
Yeah. While we're waiting for more questions, we'll continue with our resources. So we already mentioned College Essay Guide. We really like his resources. And then another one is the Ivy League Essay Guide. So really, this one is just like successful essays. So truly, this like you could really find successful essays anywhere. I think it's helpful to read over examples.
Yes. Reading examples of essays is a really good idea for you to sort of be like, what did I learn from this like person, even without them having to say it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so reading over examples can really help with like the brainstorming process.
And to circle back to College Essay Guide, he has a lot of really good examples, especially for like, he has a lot of examples for the UC prompts.
Yes.
I think he has Common App examples, if I'm not mistaken. So you could always just use him for the example portion as well. He has a lot. And then we also just wanted to mention writing centers. So we're close to UNC and they have a really solid like writing center with a lot of resources on their website. So feel free to utilize like any writing center if you know one is strong, but we know UNC's is strong. So using just the writing center and looking at the resources and stuff, they have like handouts and whatever else that could be helpful with grammar, punctuation, just general tips. So yeah. And then we also mentioned this before, but teachers and peers, have other people read your essays. They're always really good resources for, you know, just reading your essays, giving you feedback, letting you know if like what you were trying to convey is being conveyed.
Yeah. So how, what are the most generic essay topics that you would recommend staying away from? I don't really think there are any generic topics, because if you do a good job of making it personal, including a specific moment, a personal detail, something from your lived experience that's like specific to you,
it can't be generic.
It can't be generic. So there is no essay to stay away from. How much of the what do you admire about your community essay needs to reflect something about yourself? That is an amazing question. I think that when you're talking about your community, you already are talking about a part of yourself, because you're talking about a community that you are involved in, immersed in. So I think it's okay to sort of like talk as much about the community as about why do you value it? Why do you care about it? Or what would you change about it? Like, what do you like about your community? What would you improve in your community? So like, I think talking about your community first, obviously, to let your reader know what you're going to be talking about, and then tying it to yourself.
I also had something about topics. I think one thing you want to make sure you avoid is talking about illegal activity. That's not going to come across well unless it's on your record and you need to explain something. That's a situation, but you don't, like, if you're talking about a really wonderful night with friends where you all decided to rob a bank, like that's not a fun,
a really wonderful night.
It's not going to leave a good taste in their mouth.
Exactly. Even if you are a changed person since this event, just do not write about it.
Also, I think if you're going to write about sports, there's a way to do it. And I don't like being very specific about the experiences that you've had, rather than just saying like, I love football so much. I've played football for 4 years. It took a lot of hard work for me to become a better quarterback. Like, you need to talk about a specific moment where you decided you loved football. Like, you caught the ball and you realized all the hard, like something that is going to be more catching versus just like football is hard.
Yes. Definitely.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
That does make sense, because that is a common essay topic. And I think it's really common to use that one for like a hard work prompt. And being specific is key.
Is College Greenlight a good resource? Not many people I know use it, so I would not know. College Greenlight is a good resource. I think that there are a lot of really helpful links and tools in College Greenlight. I know that I recommend it to students for the scholarship search feature, but if they have essay help on there as well, I think that would be definitely good help. How many examples do you suggest reading? I'm afraid if I read too much, I will lose my voice.
Ooh, that's a
That makes sense.
Maybe like 3. I
Yeah.
don't know, 2 to 3. You don't need to read like all 50 of them, but I think
Yeah.
just
Right.
getting more than one.
But like less than 10.
Yeah. However many you feel like you need to spark something.
Yeah.
That will give you an idea, I guess.
And also, if you're really worried about it, you can just go to other resources.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily need to read examples, especially if you feel like you are afraid of losing your voice. One thing that you could also do is like write a draft of your essay first and then maybe read some essays and just think like, oh, I like how this person like included a quote here, or I like that was really impactful and that would make sense in my essay. But then you already have like a draft of your work that can't be influenced by anybody else. Good question.
Quotes are also a difficult thing to incorporate into
True.
your
Let's talk
essay.
about quotes. Let's talk about quotes.
Because
Glad I said that.
College Essay Guy has a whole article about it, which I think if you want to do it, definitely suggest reading that, just because for the most part, it should be your words. And if you really think you need the quote to make the point, you could.
Yes, but overall, yes, maybe using your essay should be mostly in your words, and you shouldn't necessarily need to use a quote to talk about whatever you're talking about in your college essay.
Is that fair? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless it really just enhances the quality of your writing, and you just can't say it in a better way. And make sure that it shouldn't be too long. It should
you
be short.
Cite it properly.
Cite it properly. That is the complication of using a quote in a college essay.
That's true.
Because since it's all your own original work, you don't need to cite anybody. But if you are using quotes, then you would. But yeah, also reach out to your advisor if you use a quote. How do you make the 35-word short response on QuestBridge not straightforward? Are they supposed to be straightforward? Yes, the 35-word short responses are supposed to be straightforward. They honestly just want your first answer. They just want you shouldn't spend too much time thinking about it. Spend time, but also you don't need to go in depth because there are only 35 words. When writing an essay, where is a good place to start? I know people always recommend a good hook, but I cannot think of any. So I feel like a good hook to your essay could always come later. You could always add that. I agree with what Juliana mentioned earlier about brainstorming. Really think about do the values activity, and then that would boil it down to what are the values that are most important to you, and then sort of how to formulate your essay around that. And I think if you write the bulk of your essay, so whatever it is that you want to talk about, if it's a relationship you have with a sibling or a passion that you have or a club that you're in or something like that, the story, the hook can come after you already have your topic.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when I am trying to think of hooks, I think it can be really helpful to think about descriptive things and details and experiences. So what did you smell? What did you hear? What are you think about all of your senses, and then that can lead to something that's interesting. It may not be you may not go with your first choice, but as soon as you start the process, then it can help you start thinking about a hook.
We love it. We love to see it. If you wanted to write about a difficult experience, do you have any advice about how to go about it in a way that does not ask the reader to feel sorry for you?
That's a really good question.
Rosalie, great question. I think as long as you don't spend too much time about focusing on the difficult experience, and then if you talk about yourself in the rest of the essay and how you have overcome this difficult experience or what you have learned or how has it changed your perspective, and more focusing on the person that you are today, that's definitely not going to make anyone feel sorry for you. It's just going to make them, maybe if you do it the right way, they're going to be impressed by you. They're going to respect you. They're going to be wow, this student is hardworking and overcame this. So
there's an upward trend.
That's right. The upward trend.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, Shelby. Hey, Shelby. I heard that these two essay cliches, one, talking more about someone else inspiring you rather than focusing on yourself.
I said that earlier.
That's right. We did talk about this earlier. So as long as you're focusing more on yourself and this person who inspired you, how has it changed you? Has it changed your life? You don't want to be talking forever about the person that inspired you, because that's not the point of your essay. The point of the essay is for the admissions officer to get to know you, not the person you aspire to be.
And then essays that refer to yourself as complete rather than a work in process. Definitely. I think that colleges want to see that you're willing to grow and willing to learn, and also recognizing you're 17 or 18. you are not done.
Yeah.
And college is a place to grow.
To grow.
Exactly. So you want to make it seem like you're open to that.
For sure.
Thank you, Shelby.
How can I avoid cliches in my story if it's similar to many others, even if it is a personal struggle? I've had so many students come to me so far this year, like, I just have such a common story and I think everyone is going to write about it, or all my friends are writing about this one thing that we experienced. And like I said, if your essay is specific enough to you, so like you tell that story of that moment of whatever happening in your life. For example, I guess, like, okay, I was in the marching band in high school, and so were hundreds of thousands of other students across the United States. But maybe like if I talked about like the defining moment of like when I was a senior and I was like the section leader and I was like standing on the field with like my other section leaders around me, and we won grand champion, and like watching like everybody run out to us and we were all celebrating on the field. That is a moment that puts me apart from everybody else that just talked about being in marching band or being a leader. And if I talk about my specific like relationships that I have like with my friends, or, you know, with my peers, with my whatever band director, that would make that essay still unique to you. Does that answer your question? As long as you include a specific story, a moment, make it less generalized, it can't be too like overused. As for cliches, just don't use them. Like cliched phrases.
Also, I think your writing is going to give you a different perspective. There could be, the three of us could experience the same thing, and the way we talk about it and the way we explain the story is going to be different because we all approach it differently. And so, like, value your voice and value the way you tell a story.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
that. Is it better to write an essay that shows what you're good at, or an essay that shows your passion? Are you passionate about what you're good at? Because I think that you should be if you're going to write about that.
That's true. And also, when you're thinking about choosing your prompt and you're thinking to yourself, like, what has not been shown on my application, or the one where it's like, if your application is not complete without this piece of info in it, then you should write about it. So think about that in terms of both of those.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's a great question. You do not need to submit the Common App at the same time as the QuestBridge application. No, you do not. So on September 26th, when you submit QuestBridge, that is not, on September 26th, when you submit like the biographical essay, the short answer questions, that is not going to any of your colleges yet. So you do not need to submit the Common App. It is only if you become a finalist, if you find out that you become a finalist on October 15th or 16th, that then your QuestBridge like application will be forwarded to whatever schools you ranked. Amber, does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense.
And then by
you'll
November
submit the
1st,
extra
you
stuff.
commit.
True. By November 1st, you have to submit all the extra stuff. So some schools require by November 1st that you submit the Common App. So the earliest that you need to submit the Common App for QuestBridge schools is November 1st. Sweet. Okay, cool. But definitely like know if you have any other early action applications if you're doing QuestBridge. Like I know there are a few, not a lot, schools that have early action deadlines in October. So then, of course, your Common App would need to be done for that. But if that's not your situation, then you don't need to worry about the Common App till November 1st. How are the supplements extra stuff for the QB finalist? That's going to be dependent on different schools. I know that Columbia has a questionnaire. I know that UPenn has a supplemental essay. You're going to have to look it up for your schools that you're ranking. When you are reflecting in your essay, how do you not make it sound too cliche, such as, wow, I've grown so much and I've learned so much? Yeah, that's
telling rather than showing.
So saying I have grown so much is just telling, but maybe like telling a story. So showing about a moment that you have grown and then maybe elaborating on that would be a better way to sort of like phrase that.
Or like, I guess you could also talk about how if you had encountered this situation a year ago, the way you would have handled it versus now, that's demonstrating the growth and the development that you've experienced.
That's true.
Also, there are like, whenever you write an essay, like there are just some things that come across in your essay that you don't necessarily say. For example, I read an essay last year and it was about chess, and I wasn't super excited to read it because I was like, this is about chess, but it was very compelling and it was very fascinating, and I could tell the student was really passionate about it. So even though he didn't say like, I'm innovative and I like to think abstractly and I like to whatever, think about like chess possibilities and I really like math and like statistics and probability. He never said any of those things, but I got it from the essay because of the story that he like painted talking about chess. My biographical essay is 600 plus, the word limit is 800. Should I add to it?
Probably.
You want to
Yeah.
be within 100 words.
Yeah. And if they give you 800 words, they want you to.
Yeah, they're giving you 800 words for a reason.
close.
So use the one that's 600 for your Common App, but then maybe talk to your advisor about like where can you add for like the last like 100 words. Is it better to submit your application earlier so admissions officers see your application first? There's a lot of benefits of applying early, either action or decision. If you're talking about early action versus regular decision, but just submitting earlier, I think it's probably better for you to submit your application like before like the night that it's due, just so that like if the server goes down because like there's too many students trying to apply at once, that you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't assume that the admissions officers aren't going to read it first just because you submitted it first.
Right.
Yeah.
That's okay.
How would you recommend properly writing the what would you bring as a student at our college essay so that it will reflect on the best parts of you? I think that goes back to the values exercise. Like, what values are important to you and how will you bring that to that university? Or, if there's a club that you're in, how would you translate that to your time and experience at these universities? Because I think that what these universities are looking for are students who will be active in the community, will make friends with other students, will engage with the events that are put on. So they just want to see sort of like, how will you do that? How do you take full advantage of the additional information section? At the moment, I cannot think of anything else to add.
I think that's a really good space to put in like personal circumstances if
Yeah.
you don't write about it.
Mhm.
So if you take care of a younger sibling,
Yep.
if you help a grandparent or something like that, that's a good
Yeah.
space to include that. If
Yeah.
you
Work a job to help pay the bills.
although
Yeah.
you could put that in the activities.
You
can't
can also put that in the
Yeah.
activity section.
But if it's something that you believe has affected your high school experience or
Yes.
just your life in general,
Yes.
include it there. And it's also okay if you don't have anything to put there. Like you
Yeah.
don't need to make up.
No. You
stuff.
can leave that section blank.
Yeah, definitely.
This is not about essays, but when you're applying to a reach school, what type of mentality should you have? I don't want to think about, I have no shot of getting it. Oh, and I will be dust. Okay. So like what sort of mentality? I think that you should definitely like just be realistic. And as we tell all of our students, any school that has less than a 20% acceptance rate, so most QuestBridge schools, right, is just a reach school for everybody. Of course, somebody has to get into these universities and make up the first year class. But that being said, it's just not a guarantee, regardless of like your test scores or your essays and stuff like that. So I think applying to like safety, match, and reach schools that you are excited about, like make sure that you like want to go to your safety school and your match school and that you are excited about any of the opportunities will put you in a good position in the spring when you're getting all of your acceptance letters, regardless of where you got accepted, denied, deferred, waitlisted.
And also like whether or not you're accepted somewhere isn't indicative of like the value of you and how smart you
No,
are as an individual.
It's not,
Especially with these reach schools.
Yes.
There are so many like
Qualified
brilliant,
applicants.
exactly. Like
amazing students such as yourself that are applying all across the country. So do not take it personally if you do not get in. All of these schools are looking for something specific, and it could be different for admission officer to admission officer, even in the same university. So yeah, don't take it personally. I know that I toured Columbia earlier this spring, and the admissions officer, she actually spoke about that specifically. She said, please, like, I know that you are all amazing, like high school students, and that like, if we do not accept you, do not be offended. Like your best fit school just might be at a different place.
Mhm.
Amber, you're so welcome.
That's so nice.
Thank you for thanking us. It means,
Thank you for tuning in.
means a lot to us.
we're really excited that you're all here.
Yes, we are
Yes,
excited.
we are.
Okay, I think that we are going to wrap that up. It's
Yes.
8:03, so it's been about an hour. But if you have more questions or comments, please just leave them in the comment section below. This video should be up in about 30 minutes or so. So yes, leave them in the comments or text your advisor.
Get started brainstorming.
Yay, start brainstorming your essays.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.